Hello everybody, welcome to our IELTS Grammar Masterclass lessons, and these lessons are going to walk us through different aspects of grammar and then relate them to IELTS practice. So if you've got your exam booked, if it's coming up for you, then this is a great way to feel confident in all different areas. And today we are going to look at verbs, adjectives and adverbs. So if this sounds good to you, then you can follow along today and hopefully by the end feel confident in these three different aspects of grammar. Okay, let's start with verbs. You might have come across verbs, different types of verbs. We'll think about them today, but they are essentially the words that express a state of being, or I like to call them the doing words. That works for some of them. There's different categories of verbs which we'll talk about. But in your IELTS practice, using a variety of verbs helps to convey a range of meanings. So if you really want to get those top band scores, you want to add complexity to your sentences, variation, then verbs are really one to master here. Examples include run. She likes to run in the park every morning. Read. I enjoy spending my evenings reading novels. Eat. They always eat dinner together as a family. And write. He loves to write poetry in his free time. Okay, so just a few to warm us up here, get us familiar with the function in the sentence, and I'm sure you've come across these verbs. These are quite common verbs. Okay, so you have auxiliary verbs then. Now, these are a category of verbs. They are known as helping verbs, and they are used with the main verbs like our run or write or eat to create different tenses. So when we think about the tenses later on in this course, we'll rely on our auxiliary verbs, so keep that in mind. Voices, moods, and aspects in a sentence. So they lend a hand by providing additional information about the action or state of being. There's three main auxiliary verbs: be, have, do. And you'll see these come up frequently, and now you know that they are auxiliaries, so they are not the main verb, but they lend a hand, they're helping verbs. Let's start with be. What is it used for? So it's used for continuous tenses. We'll look at this in the course: present continuous, past continuous, and future continuous, and also the passive voice. So we'll also look at passive and active voice in the course in more detail, but we'll touch on it today. So for example, she is reading a book. Read is the base form of this main verb reading, which is the present participle of that verb. But is helping the main verb out here, lending a hand to support the sentence and to create this present continuous tense. Another one, they were playing tennis when it started raining. That's be in its past tense form, and you'll notice that it changes. We can call this irregular, and irregular verbs don't follow any pattern, they just have to be memorized. There's no quick way of learning them, unfortunately, but they come up a lot, irregular verbs, and that way you're more likely to just pick them up and learn them. So just a small point there. And then the cake will be baked by Mary. Our future simple tense, and then the passive voice. Passive voice is when the subject is almost not the person doing it so much as what the action is. So for example, Mary is not important in this sentence. It's the fact that the cake will be baked. That's the important part. Okay, so that's our auxiliary verb be. a little bit of information there. Let's move on to have now. This is crucial for perfect tenses: present perfect, past perfect, and future perfect. You could say, I have seen that movie before, and that's the present perfect. So have supporting the past participle in this situation, which is seen. She had already finished her homework. That's past perfect. By tomorrow, we will have completed the project, and that is future perfect. Okay, so you can see the tenses in action here. Like I say, we will touch upon this a lot more in future lessons. So if you're wanting to brush up on the tenses, then those are the lessons for you. But here we're just focusing on that auxiliary verb have. And the last one, do. This is used to form questions, or in other words, interrogatives, negatives, and emphatics. And that's when there's emphasis on a certain part of the sentence, aspect of the sentence, in the present and the past simple tenses, not the future. For example, you can form a question like, do you like ice cream? And you could use it again for the answer if you like. Yes, I do. She doesn't eat meat. That's a negative. Does not. And another one, I did finish my homework. So that's an emphatic sentence, drawing attention to the fact that, yes, the subject here, I did, in fact, finish my homework. Maybe it was against all odds. Maybe it was unexpected. So there's the emphasis there. Okay, so do is quite flexible in its different forms, and you see it come up in various different sentences here. So good to be familiar with do. Okay, so let's talk about modal verbs now. What are they? Well, they are a category of auxiliary verbs. So you can think about verbs as different umbrellas. You've got the overall large umbrella of verbs. Underneath that, you've got a smaller umbrella of auxiliary verbs. Under auxiliaries, you've got a smaller umbrella, yet again, of modal verbs. So they are counted as auxiliaries, so we can call them auxiliary verbs or modal verbs if we want to be more specific. And they express modality. Well, what is modality? It is the speaker's attitude towards perhaps the likelihood, the necessity, ability, permission, or willingness of the action or state expressed by the main verb. So our main verbs are verbs that we looked at right at the beginning: run, write, eat, verbs like those. You can express different modes of those verbs, and we'll look at that in more detail. So can is a modal verb, and you can say she can swim very well. Swim is acting as the main verb in the sentence, and the modal verb can expresses ability. She can swim very well. Could. Another one, he could play the piano when he was younger. Play, the main verb, but could here showing again the ability of the subject when he was younger. May, you may use my computer. Use, main verb, but may is showing permission here. Might, it might rain later, so bring an umbrella. Again, the possibility or the likelihood of something happening. Will, I will help you with your homework. Okay, so you can see how we've got our main verbs, that's okay here. And now our modal verbs add an extra layer of detail to this verb. So now you understand what's the possibility of something, or what's the likelihood of something. And this helps bring your sentences to life, if you like. There's more. We have would. If I had more time, I would visit you. Possibility of something happening. Shall. Shall we go for a walk? Now, shall is not as common, I would say. It's quite formal, but it's still good to be aware of because it's still used here and there. You should study for the exam. He must finish his assignment before leaving. Ought to. Now, ought to is similar to shall. It's not as perhaps common, but good to be aware of nevertheless. We ought to be more careful next time. And we've got our auxiliary verb there as well, be. Okay, so you can see the variety of modal verbs here, and now that we know them, I'm sure you'll be able to spot them in many sentences. Okay, some speaking examples just to round this off. You can say, I strongly believe that governments should implement stricter environmental policies. Now, this is more geared towards IELTS now, so if that's something that you're practicing for, then this is perfect for you. Okay, can you see any verbs in this sentence? Any main verbs, any modal verbs, or auxiliary verbs? Have a look, and then we'll double check. Okay, let's see what we've got. So we've got a main verb, which is believe. I strongly believe that governments should. Auxiliary verb. And then implement is another verb. So you can have a main verb. That's absolutely fine with another verb in the same sentence. So you don't have to just have one main verb. Important point here. Okay, hopefully that is making sense at the moment. Let's see another example. Students must actively participate in class discussions to enhance their language skills. So this might be another sentence that you say in perhaps the speaking parts of the IELTS exam. Can you see any verbs in this one? Have a look, have a think, and then we'll check it together. Okay, so we have must, which is a modal verb here. Participate is the main verb, and then we have another verb, enhance. So there can be many verbs in one sentence. Okay, now we have a few writing examples. So you could say, technological advancements have revolutionized the way we communicate. Any ideas as to the verbs in this sentence? Have a think. I just said one. Okay, so we've got a verb phrase here actually. So when an auxiliary verb like have is next to a main verb, like revolutionized, we have what's called a verb phrase. They're working together here. And that's the same for noun phrases and prepositional phrases as well. So when you see them all together, they're like friends, they're working in conjunction with each other, and we can call them a phrase, more than just one word. Okay, another one. It is essential for individuals to adapt to the changing job market. What are the verbs here? Any ideas? Let's have a look. Okay, so we've got is, one of our auxiliary verbs. If you remember at the start, be, this is the form of be. And then we have to adapt. Now that's an infinitive. When you see this word, this preposition before the verb, so for example, to adapt, to eat, to write, to swim, in the base form of the verb, that's what's called the infinitive verb. And sometimes they do come up in sentences. You might be learning the infinitives in general to help with verbs, and sometimes they're in their infinitive form. Okay, so those were our verbs. I hope that was helpful. We've briefly touched upon them. We'll look at them in more detail, certain aspects, but just the main things to think about there today. Okay, so let's now move into adjectives. What are adjectives? They describe or modify nouns. Nouns are people, places, or things, and so they provide more information about them. In other words, they add detail and specificity. So you can really add vibrancy to your sentences, add interest and intrigue there with adjectives. Okay, some examples. Beautiful. The garden is filled with beautiful flowers of various colours. What is beautiful? Modifying or enhancing flowers. Talking about the flowers here, the noun, plural. Enormous. She received an enormous package in the mail containing a surprise gift. Enormous. Talking about the package. Intelligent. The student is known for being highly intelligent and always excels in academic pursuits. Intelligent here describing the student. So you can see how the sentence is much more interesting with these adjectives here. We've got some speaking examples now. So I visited a breathtaking mountain range during my vacation. Any ideas what the adjective could be here? Have a think. So a good tip is to spot the noun. If you can find the noun, then you are likely to be able to find the adjective that is modifying that noun. Okay, we'll have a look together. Breathtaking is the adjective describing the mountain range. Breathtaking is often used for describing scenery or views, things like that. Okay, another one. The presentation was informative and kept the audience engaged. What is the noun here and how is it being described? Have a think. And then we'll go and have a look together. So the presentation is what we're talking about, the noun, the focus. And what was it? It was informative. Okay, writing examples. The cityscape was adorned with glittering skyscrapers and vibrant lights. Wow, there's a lot happening in this sentence. Have a think about what the adjective or adjectives, plural, could be in this sentence. Let's have a look. We've got two. So, glittering is modifying skyscrapers and vibrant is modifying the lights. So you're welcome to have more than one adjective in a sentence. That's perfectly fine here. Okay, another one. An inclusive education system accommodates students with diverse learning needs. What seems to be the adjective here or adjectives? Let's have a look. Inclusive is modifying the education system, while diverse is modifying and talking about the learning needs. Okay, there we go. So let's move on to adverbs. And this is the last section that we'll look at today. So we've done verbs, adjectives. So what are adverbs? Well, they modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. So they're much more flexible in a sentence than adjectives. Adjectives tend to stick near the noun that they are modifying, and they tend to only modify nouns, whereas adverbs are more fluid, they move around, they can describe and modify different parts of the sentence here. And you'll discover that when you're asking questions like how, when, where, or to what extent, that is when your adverbs come in. That's their purpose in a sentence. They answer these questions. Okay, a few examples. Quickly. She finished her work quickly. So how did she finish her work? Well, we have the answer here with the adverb quickly. Carefully. The artist painted the intricate details carefully. So carefully referring to how the intricate details were painted. And quietly, the baby slept quietly in the crib. Quietly referring to how the baby slept. So each one of these situations, the adverb is modifying the verb, but there are other situations as well that it can modify different parts of the sentence. And you can see that in every sentence, the adverb can be omitted, so you can take it away and the sentence still makes sense grammatically. So adverbs are like the decorations on top of a cake. They really add a bit of pizzazz to your sentence, if you like. Okay, speaking examples. She spoke passionately about the need for sustainable living. Where is the adverb? What does it seem to be modifying here? Let's have a look. Passionately, the adverb talking about how she spoke. A lot of adverbs actually end with this ly. So yes, that's another way that you could sometimes spot an adverb tip there. So you could say she was remarkably confident during the work presentation. Okay, any ideas as to what this adverb could be here? This is a bit of a tricky one. So have a think. Remarkably is the adverb here, and it's modifying the adjective confident. She was confident, remarkably confident. So this is a different example where adverbs can be used to modify different parts of the sentence. Okay, writing examples, you could say, the new policy will significantly reduce carbon emissions. Any idea? You've got a word with an ly again. That's a bit of a clue. The new policy will significantly, modifying, reduce carbon emissions. Okay, and the last one. The process was explained quite clearly, so everyone understood. Now we're ending on the most challenging example here, so see if you can spot the adverb. It's not what you might think. I'll give you a few moments. So this one, you have two adverbs. So I'm sure you spotted the one with the ly clearly, but did you spot the quite? That was modifying the clearly. That's a sneaky one there. So sometimes adverbs can actually modify adverbs. There we go. Okay, well, we will leave it there today. Thank you so much for coming along. We have talked about a lot today, and I hope that that has been helpful in some way. We will go into more detail in different parts of this video, different parts of grammar. So if there's anything that you're not sure about in today's video, then we'll look more in depth in future videos. So thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.